Hi, everyone. I'm not used to walking on high heels. So, I'm Egli, and I'm an addict. Not in the conventional sense of the word. My behavior is mostly non-destructive, but it's definitely one I can't stop. And believe me, I've tried. I'm a so-called self-help junkie. I've been on this journey for nearly 30 years. And when a day goes past that I won't read or listen to something or take a course, that won't help shift my mindset to more honest and authentic living. I sometimes feel my body that's like this big musical instrument that is out of tune. And every time I open my mind to a new way of looking at life, it's like I feel this shift in my body, literally. And it's like the music I play is a little bit more in tune and in harmony. In tune with what, you might ask? In tune with reality. You see, one of my favorite quotes is by Albert Einstein, and he says, "Reality is merely an illusion, albeit a very persistent one." And I want to be able to see through this illusion we call life, to get to see myself and therefore others with more clarity, without filters, with more love and compassion, to find the truth, to find peace. Now, I desperately needed this transformation. If you had asked me back then to meet you at a cafe on my own, I would be trembling as I walked through the cafe trying to find you. And in meetings at work, I couldn't speak, however much I wanted to voice my point of view. And in more intimate relationships, well, I didn't even know I had basic human rights. I was in a pretty dark place until a dear relative gave me my first personal growth book in my early 20s, The Road Less Traveled by M. Scott Peck. Now, I'm notorious for my absolutely terrible memory, and not just because of menopausal brain fog like I just had, but I'll never forget not only the author, but also the title of this book. And so I started my road less traveled. This endless journey towards inner peace that opened up an entire universe of possibilities. Possibilities of how I wanted to show up in the world and of the story I would like my children to remember me by. Any other people pleasers in the house? Yeah, ever agree to do something you didn't really want to do because you didn't want to disappoint someone? Or find yourself replaying past conversations, wondering what you should have said? Yeah. On top of the severe people-pleasing, you can add a spoonful, rather a bucketful of introversion, and you can get an even clearer picture of what I was like back then. If you're wondering what I'm doing on this stage right now, well, so am I. To add all that together, on top of my upbringing, you get someone who is terrified of conflict, more like petrified. Aren't you? Of course, conflict is a natural part of every relationship, be it at home, with friends, at work, even between our own inner parts. And at the same time, we're hardwired for connection and belonging. How do we navigate both? How do we care for ourselves and others at the same time? It's clear to me now that the quality of our relationships is dependent on the quality of our conflicts. If we're too afraid to be honest with our partners, how can we truly connect? If we suppress parts of us to keep the peace, is it really peace? To overcome this fear, I needed lots and lots of continuous, vulnerable, painful work. That's where my addiction came in very useful. Tony Robbins says, change happens when the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of making the change. And I kept trying, pushing my boundaries, getting out of my comfort zone over and over again. Looking back, it was like shifting the bearing of the course of an aeroplane by a fraction of a degree, and yet that's still enough to end up at a totally different destination. We don't grow up, just wake up one day knowing how to navigate relationships, right? Like I tell my students, just because we roll out of bed a day older, it doesn't mean we're a day wiser. We need to learn life skills like we learn how to solve maths problems. We need to improve our communication skills, which are the core of a healthy relationship. In my case, I didn't even know what a healthy relationship was supposed to look like. And we can blame our parents or judge our educational system, which I have done many times. Sorry, Dad. But at the end of the day, the only person we can change is ourselves. The only thing we have real control over is us, our thoughts, beliefs, behaviors. Be the change you wish to see in the world, right? But Gandhi, in that same quote, a bit later on, he says, "An eye for an eye will only make the whole world blind." He's inviting us to take responsibility and find a different way of navigating conflict other than blinding each other. He's reminding us that even big changes can start at the grassroots with you and me. So I was transforming for years, but something was missing. That's when I discovered NVC, nonviolent communication, more than 10 years ago. NVC was founded by psychologist Marshall Rosenberg, an incredible man. From him, I realized that since we're born, we're trained to think in right and wrong, in blame and judgment. But he teaches us another way, a way which enables us to take responsibility in our feelings and actions, a way which empowers us to be us while at the same time connecting and respecting others. I used to think there were only 3 ways, that outcomes that to a conflict. Either I win and the other person loses, the other person wins and I lose, or everyone loses by some way by coming up with some compromise. NVC teaches us another way, a conscious and compassionate way of communicating that allows for everyone's needs to be met. Sounds impossible, right? Rumi said, "Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there." And where is this field, this space without blame and judgment? And we see not only taught me how to find this field that Rumi is talking about, but also how to navigate honest and authentic conversations. It helped me shift my mindset to conflict to the extent that I've grown to embrace it and even see it as a gift. Now, many would agree that there's no harder job than being a parent, especially the parent to teenagers. And I'm so grateful I have NVC in my life, as I have 2 of those. It's not that we don't have conflict at home. We definitely have our fair share, but much less than we could have, I believe. You see, it takes 2 to have a conflict, in the same way as it takes 2 absent-minded drivers to have a car crash. Think of how many times you swerved out of the way of a car that came crossing into your lane. Conflict doesn't start by the way someone talks to us or behaves towards us. It starts by the way we react to it, by the way we perceive their words and actions. Of course, having no conflicts is not necessarily a sign of a healthy relationship either, as I used to think. A sign of a healthy relationship is, what do we do afterwards? How do we repair the conflict? NVC-based mediation has become my most favorite and useful skill that I use in my everyday life and work. The people I mediate often leave the mediation a lot more relieved. The process can be so transformative, it almost feels like magic. There is a catch, though. For the mediation to be fruitful, both people in the conflict have to want to be there, to want to resolve it in some way. There has to be a willingness to even begin to hear the other person's story and experience. Of course, the most important skill in communication is not how we speak, but how we listen. To hear beyond the words. to be able to separate the behavior from the human being. Because once we see the other as human, how can we not have empathy or care for them? How can we even wish them harm? Now the question, of course, here is, why do we forget our humanity? How is that even possible? Perhaps the answer is rooted in trust. When we grow up learning that to get our needs met, we have to fight for them and hurt and yell and hit, or become passive-aggressive and shut down and give a silent treatment, or perhaps even lie and hide, too scared to show our own truth. If in those moments we're disconnected from ourselves and therefore from others. If that's how we learn to protect ourselves as children, then that's what we'll do as adults, unless we shift the filters through which we experience life. When our amygdala is triggered into a fight and flight response, we go back to our old programming to survive whatever it takes to stay safe. But when we trust that the other person also cares for us and will also include our needs as well as theirs in the decisions they make, that's when we really build trust, and authenticity and honesty can flow. Perhaps you've heard the expression, hurt people hurt people. We're all in pain one way or another. Let's cut everyone some slack and show more compassion to ourselves and others. We're all doing the best we know how to do with the skills and knowledge we have in that moment. We really are all the same at the core. Whether we're 93 or a newborn, live in a mansion or a prison, we're a Christian or Muslim, we all have the same needs. We might not all have the same strategies to meet our needs, but we do all have the same needs. We all need love, peace, compassion, belonging, understanding, authenticity, and the list goes on. Let's not rush to judge one another. I definitely do it a lot more than I would like. Let's embrace our common human condition. And remember Einstein's words, reality is an illusion. The next time you're triggered, I invite you to pause, to enter a Rumi's field, and to become curious. To listen, not just to the words, but to the human being behind them. Let's cause a butterfly effect together towards more peace in the world, one conversation at a time. So this is what I discovered during my road less traveled. And now I can happily walk through a cafe to meet you. I'm sometimes first to speak in big meetings, and I teach about human rights. My voice now matters. All of our voices matter. Thank you.